When there is a claim of excessive police force, an arrest, for example, who hears that? Is there a special board, or does the police investigate themselves?
Well, any time that there's a complaint, first the police would look into it themselves, and then if if there was some kind of determination that there was a problem, it would probably be something that would be turned over to our insurance carrier, and we would see if there was any kind of civil settlement that could be worked out. If it weren't something we could resolve like that, then likely they would get an attorney or themselves go to court and try to get a resolution there. So
I imagine anytime there's a significant bodily injury or the use of a gun in reference to arrest or something, that's automatically investigated?
Oh yeah, any time under our police procedures, we internally look into anything like that, certainly. Yeah.
I had one thing I wanted to mention, then we'll open it up to the floor for a couple questions. Mr. Surrisi mentioned the importance of this election coming up in the fall. Do you realize, being an even-numbered year, we're going to elect every single member of the House of Representatives this year? So that's hugely important. That's where bills begin, appropriation bills, money being spent. I'm Scottish, so that's important to me. So, this is a gargantuanly important election. The whole House is up for grabs. 1/3 of the Senate seats are up, plus a whole lot of state offices. So if you want to have a voice, in policies and laws that impact, guess who? You. Then you probably want to get registered and vote. That would be my suggestion.
There's wanted to hit on real quick just a couple of exciting things I think that have been going on in Indiana relatively recently that impact on the federal Constitution. One, Dr. Buchanan mentioned that Article 5 has the constitutional amendment process, and that can either be initiated in the Congress by a 2/3 vote, and then it goes out for all the state legislatures to ratify those amendments, which all of our amendments thus far have been done that way. But an Indiana Senator, David Long from the Fort Wayne area, has been one of the leaders in a movement that he's trying to coordinate folks from other states to initiate a state-led amendment process. The Article 5 allows for a convention to be called by the state legislators, and they could approve amendments that then would go out for ratification by the states as a whole. So that's just kind of been an initial process this summer. He hosted an event down at the Indiana State House with, I think they had maybe 20 folks from other states that came, and they're just trying to talk about a process of if we ever did have enough states that were willing to call one of these conventions, how would we handle that? And just last year, the Indiana legislature passed a state law that said how internally how we would handle that, how we would appoint the delegates to that convention, and things like that. So it's kind of an interesting thing that people are thinking about, leading some amendments in that way. And then another thing that's very fresh in the news is the same-sex marriage debate. So Indiana has a law that limits marriage to just between a man and a woman. The federal court down in southern Indiana held that that was unconstitutional earlier this year, and then the federal appeals court in Chicago just last week or the week before, a couple of weeks ago, said that that violated the equal protection clause of the 14th Amendment. So and the state has appealed that to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the end of this month they will consider in a conference that case along with 3 other cases if they would grant the appeal and actually hear it. So it's very interesting. Folks have been working for a long time to kind of press that issue, and I think the Indiana case is really positioned to be one that might likely be the one that they would take. Our state attorney general has been defending the state's marriage ban all along, and some of the other states, the state's attorney general has decided that he wasn't really in favor of the state bans and has kind of backed off on that. So it's kind of no matter where you stand on that issue, it's an important one that we're going to likely have a resolution on soon.
I keep saying one more question. I can't help myself. I'm so interested. If a man and a man get married in a state where gay marriage is legal and come to Indiana, will the state of Indiana now, in accordance with full faith and credit, recognize that marriage or not?
Our state statute says that we wouldn't, and right now,
does that violate the Constitution?
Right now, Well, that would be
Yeah,
part
that's
of
an argument.
That's part of the argument that the Court of Appeals said it does, but they've stayed their ruling until the U.S. Supreme Court could weigh in
Okay.
on that. So
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Any questions for either one of us about Mr. Goff?
Yeah. A test question for you, Dr. Buchanan. In your opinion, what president was the most effective user of the Constitution? And second, who was the best Chief Justice in your opinion, and why?
Okay, what was the first question about the presidents?
What president most effectively utilized the Constitution?
Oh, that's great. I would say Lincoln by disregarding it. I'm not trying to be funny here. Lincoln violates the writ of habeas corpus. He has people thrown into jail. They never see a trial. He raises the army, which Congress is supposed to do. That goes back to what we're talking about. It being a bare bones document. Lincoln knew that he had to take an initiative here. He didn't get along with the Chief Justice at that time, Roger Taney. So it's not as if Lincoln didn't know the Constitution. Very knowledgeable, well-read, an attorney. He knew it, but he was willing to work with it when he could, or without it when he had to. And then your second question was best
Who's the
Chief
best
Justice?
Chief Justice and why?
Okay. I'm a fan of Earl Warren. Now, there are quite a few Chief Justices I like. Former President William Howard Taft was a Chief Justice. Charles Evans Hughes. Of course, John Marshall, who breathed life into the Supreme Court. But Earl Warren is the first Chief Justice to really go to bat for poor people, for defendants, for racial minorities. And, some people said that he read too much into the Constitution. Others are saying it's about time that the government went to bat for the have-nots in society. So even though I'm a Republican, I've always been a fan of Earl Warren, who was a relatively liberal Chief Justice. Answer your question? Okay.
Hey, you got an A on the test.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Surrisi.
Surrisi?
What's the biggest problem like you face in Pennsylvania? What's that you guys really need to like focus on?
Well, that's a tough question. I think really, relatively speaking, things are going pretty well right now. I think as far as hearing, I talked about the First Amendment right to petition your government. I don't think we hear any too dire complaints about things. So, just making sure that we stay responsive to the people, and that the things are going the way that they would like to. But I think that the current city administration is doing a good job with that, and nothing too big to report right now that I can think of.
Okay, thank you. Any other student questions? Okay, well, I imagine, I'm taking a wild guess here, but I'm going to guess you're hungry. So we're going to release by roles here, so it does pay to sit in front. So the first